The Earley Show is brought to you by our friends at Answering Legal. For more than a decade, attorneys have trusted Answering Legal's 24/7 virtual receptionist service to keep their phones covered and their clients cared for. Now, they're raising the bar with an AI-powered intake chatbot, live translation services in over 180 languages, and 76 seamless tech integrations. Answering Legal's goal? Make running a law practice simpler while helping you capture every new client opportunity. And don't worry, the receptionist team is still the best in the business at turning first-time callers into loyal clients. Find out what's possible by visiting answeringlegal.com. You'll find a link to the site in the description of this episode. Now, let's get to the show. All right, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Earley Show, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. I'm your host, Chris Earley. I'm an injury lawyer in Massachusetts. And as you know, on this show, The Earley Show, we always bring you the best and the brightest. Today's no exception. We have the professor, Chad Dudley, on the call.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm a fan, so this is awesome.
I appreciate that. So Chad is a consummate giver. That's why he's so successful, because he shares everything he knows. And so that's what I really love about him. So we're going to get into a lot of stuff. As always, make sure you sharpen your pencils. We'll have plenty of writer-downers on this episode of The Earley Show. So Chad, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
So I like to start with my guests, right? I like to start, who's Chad Dudley? Going back, where did you grow up? What kind of kid were you? Take it back.
I love it. My family's from Southern California, kind of up in the desert area between Vegas and LA, and born there. When I was about 3, my family moved to Hawaii. My dad had spent some time growing up there as a kid. He thought it was a great place to raise a family, and so he and my mom just picked up and moved there. Didn't really know anybody, or just one person maybe. And I grew up in Honolulu. I grew up playing a lot of tennis. First at the state level, then at the national level, got a pretty high national ranking, and then got a scholarship to go to the Voluntary Tennis Academy when I was about 14. And so I moved by myself to Southern Florida, and now it's called IMG, the IMG Academy.
I just read Andre Agassi's autobiography. Great book, Open.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, so good.
He went there, right? He was
there the same time I was there. Andre Agassi.
Wow. Okay.
Pete Sampras, Monica Seles, Anna Kournikova, Tommy Haas.
Wow.
The list goes on and on. It was like the heyday of the academy. I mean, they just had amazing players all around. And so it was a really great experience. We, went to a little bit of school, played a lot of tennis, traveled, played tournaments, and that's how I did. Finished up my high school there. I got recruited to play tennis for LSU. They were a top 10 team in the country back in that time, and still doing great today. And I played 4 years of college tennis. I taught tennis for about a year and a half, almost 2 years after undergrad, and decided, I think I want to go back to school, and I ended up going to law school, and got out. And out of the gate, I clerked for one defense firm, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Bill every hour. This is terrible. And then I clerked for a plaintiff's firm, and then I never looked back. I went straight out and been on the plaintiff side, and that's how I got. I really, really enjoyed when I started working for a plaintiff's firm. Going, gosh, this is what I want to do. It's very tangible. People come to you that they have one of the toughest days in their lives. You get the opportunity to help them. They're, you can see a case from start to finish. It was awesome. So and I can dig into all that, but that's kind of how I ended up there in my journey to become
the tennis success wasn't by accident, obviously. So a lot of, the fact that you were playing with those guys and gals speaks volumes. As an aside, I love hiring people who are super competitive. So listener, really, right? Listener, I encourage you, hire people who like to compete. Anyway, I digress.
No, I believe the same thing. It's just, there's And I always say there's a difference between hating to lose and loving to compete, like, or being competitive. I think that no one likes to lose, and,
Right.
and you show up and in the process of losing, no one's happy. However, a competitive person practices, like, prepares for the match and puts the time, effort, energy, because they're thinking about that match way before it happens.
Yeah.
And they're doing all the things that it takes to show up and do well. So by the time the match comes around, that's competitive, right? Not
Yes.
hating to lose is just hating to lose.
Yes. What did
difference.
high level tennis teach you? What were the biggest takeaways?
Gosh, it's the discipline of, if you're trying to, we would get up and we'd work out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, even in high school, an hour, 2 hours before school even started, and you go to your classes, and then you're working out for, another 4 to 5 hours, and weights and running, and you're exhausted, and you go study. And then you gotta be super disciplined about your time. And also, you just get a high tolerance for a certain level of hard work.
Right.
By the time I got to law school, I'm like, oh my gosh, all I have to do is go read and write.
Walk in the park.
This is so much easier than undergrad. I mean, this was, for me, it was a little bit different because it just, I had, done, you work so hard and play so much. You're just constantly going 100 miles an hour. Law school is a bit of I'm not saying it's, easy, but is a lot chiller schedule.
Right.
Undergrad.
Because you were operating, because you were so used to really, really, really hard. Even law school is pretty doable.
I mean, it was I was like, oh gosh, I get to be in, air conditioned library where I get to study. And this is awesome. This is fantastic. I love this.
So
because I taught, teaching tennis for 8 or 10 hours out in South Louisiana is hot. It can be hot. And then before that, playing tennis. So you just kind of get used to a high level of work. And then I think there is a thing about just a resilience and competitiveness. I mean, you're just, you when you're competing, at any level, and you get used to keeping your head in the game and not, because we all have setbacks, right? I mean, nothing ever goes smooth. You have this plan, and then every plan is perfect until you get punched in the nose, right? And so the resilience and going, okay, keeping your head on straight when you encounter adversity, and also coming against. I think one of the cool things is, like, it teaches you to embrace a highly qualified competitor, right? I mean, versus being fearful of them. And because you realize, like, the better competition you go up against, the people that you're around, whether, they set a higher standard. And if you can look at it like, hey, this person's making me better. This is not a competitor, but they're really challenging me to be better. I think that mentality is incredibly helpful. And it served us well as we look at that. Like, we're like, okay, you know what? Let's learn from the people around us. What are they doing better?
I love that.
A lot of good things from playing tennis.
Clearly, kind of toughened you up a lot. It sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Like, playing with some high level people, you just are forced to level your game, literally, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because 100%. You do well in your city, and you go play a state tournament. You do well in the state tournament, you play regional. You play regional, you do national, cool. International, and you kind of keep pushing.
I love it, man. I sincerely love that. So you clerked, didn't love that. You started doing plaintiff's work. Was that mass torts work? Is that what I saw?
Yeah. So I laughed. The real quick story is, like, when I was coming out of law school, and I think I've told this story maybe, but I clerked at the defense firm, and it was the exact time where a defense firm was using books and the law school was using Westlaw. And so you could do way more research on Westlaw than you could. Yeah. And we, I had this stack of research assignments at in the library at the defense firm, and you pick one and go do the research and then turn in your hours. And it would drive me crazy to use the books because it was so slow. So I just grab a stack one day of all the research assignments, go to the library at the law school, use Westlaw, crank out my memos. I turn them back in. The partner the next day calls me in and goes, "Hey, I need to talk to you about this research you did." And I go in, and I'm like, "Did I get it wrong?" And he goes, "No, you did it too quick. We got to bill the clients. We got to build our hours. We got to go slower." I'm like, this hurts my soul. This is contrary to everything I've ever been about my entire life. And if this is the career I've chosen, this is terrible. And I really was bummed out. And so when that clerkship ended, I was like, man, what am I going to do? I'm doing this thing. And if this is what it's like, cause I'm the first attorney in my family. And so I had no idea like what they do. And then, I had a buddy that was in a plans firm, and we got out and like, no, we don't bill hours, and we just got to win. And, and I was like, oh, I can get behind this. This is great.
Right.
And then I took a job, and, my first gig was a project case, was a toxic tort case in North Louisiana. And they, I was, there's 4,000 plaintiffs, and they're exposed to some chemicals from this railroad company. And I was in charge of just like learning about all those clients, and it was, I remember, again, my counterpart on the defense side was a really great attorney, really awesome. And I was like, this attorney knows more about my clients than I do. This cannot be. And so finally, I was like, after one of our meetings, I just went up and asked her. I said, look, I'm impressed. You're really, how do you keep track of all of our clients? And she showed me kind of what she was doing. She built this little database thing, and I like, all right, I'm off to the races. I'm going to go learn how to build a database and learn SQL and all this kind of stuff. And so I went down that path, and that really got me into the sort of data tracking tech side of law firms. And that was and constantly trying to learn from that moment on. But that was an interesting case, and it learned so many things on that case, and very grateful for that experience.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you saw that defense lawyer operating at a high level, and you're like, and that kind of activated you almost, right? That there's
always, because I'm always like, gosh, someone's doing good and doing something better, and
right,
like, just go ask, like go. And sometimes they tell you, and sometimes they don't, and there's no harm in it, right? And I want to be better at my craft. I want to be a better attorney. This person's doing some good stuff. Let me go find out. And again, she was kind enough to just walk me through. Here's how I do it. I was like, wow, okay. And that helped. That changed my career.
That's all right. So how old are you at that point?
Gosh, I must have been. This was maybe 25-ish.
25.
Yeah.
Okay, you're still pretty young. So how long did you stay at that firm for?
I was with that firm for probably about 3 or 4 years.
Cutting your teeth, getting good.
Yeah, I had some really great mentors there. Just awesome people. It was really great people I still stay in touch with today.
Cool.
And great trial attorneys, just great attorneys, period. And it was awesome because the importance of having a mentor, right? I mean, a good mentor can really accelerate your development in so many ways, because you can, there's a lot of smart people, and they can figure out how to get from point A to point B. But gosh, with the right mentor, you can figure it out in a tenth of the time.
I wish I knew that years ago, but I hear you 100%. So you're about 30 when you left that firm?
Yeah, probably about 30-ish.
Where'd you go then?
So I was doing toxic torts, doing asbestos type litigation. They'd have, again, these massive cases. I remember, my Monday mornings would be these exception hearings, and down in the courthouse, and I would be there on behalf of on 20 different cases. And just go from courtroom to courtroom to courtroom to these different hearings. And so I did that, and then after that, I was like, okay, this is great, but I'd love to really do like single event where it's one plaintiff, or and there's one and more traditional personal injury.
Right.
And so I found a firm. Is a smaller boutique firm, but some really, really great attorneys. And I've been fortunate, just out of the gates, plaintiffs firms that took pride in their craft and really cared about their clients. Like, they're very just like doing it for the right reasons. And so I went to a firm, boutique firm that just really was getting some really great verdicts, did great trial work, and spent some time there. And it was cool because I got there, I kind of had this database sort of tech background going, and then really spending time with those guys on not mass tort cases, not toxic tort, not these, where there's 1,000 plaintiffs, but where there's one plaintiff.
Yeah.
learned a lot from them. And then also they said, hey, you can you help us organize our office? Because the skill set that you bring to the table is, keeping track of a lot of stuff.
They liked it. They liked it.
They liked it. And so I got kind of into the law firm practice side, like the operational side to some degree, and how do we get cases in the door and tracking. So I really went down that path. And then there was another personal injury firm that was doing their advertising firm. They were, doing way more cases, and they had, heard what I was doing. I went and spent some time with them, and they said, look, come on board, be more of a COO type role. Yeah. Handle some cases. And I did I continued to handle some cases, but also more of the operational side of the firm. And you talk about mentors.
Yeah.
I through that met a bunch of mentors that helped me with accelerate my knowledge about how to run law firms. And that was huge.
You used the word mentors a few times, right? Encourage the audience, get a mentor, right?
Oh my gosh. Like what we all need a coach. And you're going like, I just think about, so, now my most recent obsession is pickleball. I've been playing a lot of pickleball, and to the hardcore tennis players, they can take some offense at that, but it's any racket sport. But the point was, I was the other morning, I was playing early in the morning with some buddies, and on the court next to us was this guy, and he was practicing his serve, and I was watching him practice his serve, and he was there early in the morning, and he practiced his serve for an hour, but it was completely wrong. His grip was wrong. His stroke was wrong. It was, he just was reinforcing a bad habit for an hour. And I was like, man, it made me think, like, there's so many people out there that were like, hey, I'm up early, I'm putting in the time, I'm putting in the reps. But if you're doing it completely wrong or going down the incorrect path, you're not helping, and you're going backwards. And had that guy just had a coach out there with him, it would have been so much more productive. And we do that so many times in our own world. And I think the most, you get a coach, get someone to work with you, get a mentor. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but if you're stubborn and want to figure it out on your own, you'll probably get there. You're going to take, years instead of
many years.
Yeah. And it's just sometimes somebody says something, and that's been a big, it's no secret. I tell people, that you should do that, and it helps.
You strike me as a guy who gets, you're dialed in, right? Like you are not like a loud, like arrogant guy. Like you're a humble student, and you're always seeking knowledge, right? That's what I see, from you. It jumps off the page. Or do you still get coaching? Do you still have mentors now?
Oh yeah. I'm always, absolutely. Yeah. I think you had Cameron Harold on here recently. He's awesome. Great. Really there's different mentors in different stages of life, where it might be about this thing at one point, and at another point it might be this thing. And so over the years, continue to reach out and just work with different people. And I think when I'm talking with someone, the most dangerous phrase that has killed more firms than any other phrase is, we're doing that. We're already doing that.
Yeah.
So like if I say, hey, you should have a client communication plan for all your clients, and you should be intentional about it. You should measure it. You should, be fanatical about it. And you saying, we do that, right? We talk to our clients. Like, it kills this whole, you can't learn something that you already know.
Nope.
And there's a difference, like there's so many, benefits, like all the benefits of the things that we do are not from just implementation, but fanatical implementation. And so if you're doing something at like 80% or 85%, you're telling me, hey, we already do that. Okay, you might be, but getting fanatical about it and doing it at 95 to 100%, all the benefits just multiply exponentially. And that's something that is probably lost. Like, people, it doesn't quite resonate all the time. Like, okay, you kind of call your clients, but you don't measure it. And this other person has a very meticulous, like, when the client sends a contract, they're going to hear from this person within 12 hours of this. And then, they're going to get this message by this person, and then they're going to get something sent to their house. and then they're going to get a follow-up call, and they're going to, through the entire life of the case, and we're going to measure it and have dashboards. And we're not only going to have dashboards, we're going to hold people accountable, not from, hitting them with the stick, but from a point of like, we want to be excellent at what we do. Like there's a different piece, right? And so whenever someone goes, hey, we're already doing that, I'm like, oof, like I'm a lifelong student. I'm always learning. I've worked with some really amazing, incredible firms. And yeah, I mean, you're drinking from a fire hose and you're learning a bunch of stuff while you're teaching. I've also worked with some firms that aren't so great, but I've still learned from them, because you just got to have that mentality. I've been to good conferences where you learn a bunch of stuff, and I've been to okay conferences, but I've still learned. And just actively having that mentality is I think the way you got to be. It's a better way to go through life too, right?
I love it. I'm shaking my head. You're speaking my language. So you said fanatical implementation a lot. Like I'm fanatical about my firm's growth, doing it the right way, right? Because it sounds like sometimes we stumble. Like you sort of like, stumbled into favorable positions by intentional discipline. It wasn't random, but like you kind of just like were open. You found your way to where you belong, right? It seems like you're operating today like where you belong, like high level law firm, but you had to start you were a nobody, like no one, you were a great tennis player, but as a lawyer, like no one really knew who you were.
Yeah. Right. Opportunities all around us every single day.
Right.
Right. Because there's so many things that like it could occur. You just think about like, and then, there's a saying that, opportunities multiply as they're seized. And it's so true in the sense of like, I talk to younger attorneys and they're getting started in their career, and even my sons, and you're like, hey, I want this dream job or whatever. My sons they're 25 and 22.
Okay. And are they in the law or no?
No, they're in the tech. They're computer programmers.
They're very smart.
Yes. So they like that piece, and I talk to them, and I say, like when you start off your career, you're lucky if maybe 10% of what you do on a day-to-day basis you're really in love with, right? And you got this 90%, like you just gotta do it, right? And hopefully during the course of your career, the amount of things that your day, that 10% grows and maybe it gets up to 89%. But there's always stuff that you run into, like I wish I didn't have to deal with that. But for the most part, I'm really fortunate. I look at my schedule each day and go, oh, that's all right. I get to talk with these people. I get to do this thing, and
it clearly lights you up. Clearly,
yeah,
which is cool.
And when you start off, you just got to go, okay, expand your job description, so to speak. Like, hey, I get paid to do A, B, and C, but let's look for the things that I really love. And I know it's easy to say now, but like, you can't are they going to pay me to do that? Or they, like, go talk to somebody and go, hey, do you need help with that project? I don't care if I get paid extra. I want to go do this thing as my career. This person's doing it at a high level. I'm going to go hang out with them and see how I can help and how I can learn. And by, constantly kind of reaching out and improving your craft, it opens up other opportunities. And you didn't even know you're training for this interview, but because you did these things, you're more all of a sudden you find yourself doing more of the things you like. And so I really do believe that opportunity is all around all of us, and you just got to seize it.
I'm with you. So you dropped this phrase, which really struck with me, not hitting with a stick, but rather like leveling people up in a positive way, empowering people. Could you talk about that? Because sometimes at our firms, things don't go according. We go to a conference, we want to do it this way, our team doesn't do it. I love that, not beating with a stick, but like really like empowering, demonstrating, pursuing excellence. How should lawyers have those conversations with their team members when things are falling apart and not being done to respect them?
I think about when I was playing on, the team at LSU, right? And so you need 6 people to play on the team, and then you have typically 2 people that are, there if someone is injured or something happens or whatever, right? And the idea was, I remember like the concept being, if we're just hard on everybody on the team, especially the 2 guys that are waiting to come in, like if we beat them down so much every day, hey, you missed this shot, you didn't do this thing, you're slow. When it's time for them to step up and play, their confidence is going to be so low. They're going to feel beat down. And so in a similar way, if the goal is we want to create a great firm and people that are are confident in who they are and confident in their ability to do the job, we have to coach them up and not keep picking at them, keep beating them, right? I mean, we need to empower them and give them those tools, because when they're called on to step up and play, we need them in a feeling good about themselves and feeling good about their skill set. And so that's why, you can kind of like, you can talk about a dashboard and sometimes when I work with firms, I'm like, okay, we're going to go monitor these key performance indicators. And they're like, okay, I'm going to go get on Susie. I'm going to go get on John and really wear them out. I'm like, no, let's own it. Like, what are we doing that is allowing this? Are we not giving them the tools? We're not training them. Let's assume that everyone here wants to be great at their job. And until we have, indisputable evidence otherwise, let's just assume that they want to be great at their job. What is the rub here? And as leaders and coaches, we got to own it and figure it out and work with it and get to the bottom of it. If we just say, hey, they don't want, they're terrible, Susie, then that's lazy coaching, right?
Totally. Andrew Finkelstein, he's been on the show. He said something that's
awesome. I've learned so much from that guy.
He's another professor. Awesome. Yeah, so yes. Generous teacher. But he said, I assume positive intent. And that rings in my ears every day. And I literally talk about that with my team. I assume positive intent. Chad didn't mean to screw up that demand. Maybe I didn't coach Chad enough or whatever, right? Yep. Like, so you keep saying the word coach, and I love that because that's what it is. Like you're running a football team or a tennis team. And it's like we're coaching our players. We need to, it's like psychology. It's so, there's so many disciplines. And like, a lot of us didn't get trained on how to coach people. So a lot of us.
No.
Yeah. It's like, it's so hard because if you press the right button, off the races. If you unwittingly press the wrong button, it's like disaster central. So like, you got to be you got to know your people and know when to press the button. But it's so tricky. So I like what I was just writing down, not hitting with the stick, but rather coaching up. Hey, let's do better next time, Chad. Let's, you're doing such a good job. Right. And it's just, I find it to be a challenge sometimes because like you, high performance, high demanding, I want it done this way. And so not everyone, we're human and stuff. Cameron Harrell will say it. We're all human here. Things happen. So, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for greatness. And the more you can coach effectively, the more greatness you're going to get out of your team, right?
And it's challenging because you look at professional. First of all, if it's a professional team, then they've gone through. You think about all that. They've gone through high school. They've gone through college. These people know what they want to do, and they want to win a championship, and it's very clear. And sometimes we don't necessarily do that with our law firm. Like, what are we doing this for? Like, what are we trying to do? How good do we want to be? What are our aspirations? And we don't maybe have those conversations. The other thing that's challenging is that even in the professional teams, they have the career, like there's I think for football, it's like 3 to 5 years is the average career. And for sports, they're not, you think about the career of someone at our firm and we hope that it's decades, right? And you're talking decades. And then you're also talking about, there's no off season.
Right.
Like for a sports team, they have, hey, we go super, super crazy hard and then we get a little bit of a break and then kind of get back in training and we ramp up for the year.
Yeah.
There's shorter careers and then there's off seasons. And that's the challenge with, our teams is like, how often do we, all right, the goal for this year is da, 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 and then you hit it and then the next year starts immediately and we're all at it again. And how do you give people a break or, and then how do you keep them motivated for not 3 to 5 years, but for decades? And it's a challenging thing to be a good coach, a good leader. And I'm still learning on how to do it better. And you probably look back on things you did 10 years ago and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did it. I did it that way.
5 years.
That's part of it, right?
2 years.
I hope 2 years last week. And so it's but again, I think that's a core component of it is, okay, can we just, and that's again, another team thing, just assume positive intent. Like, you know what, I remember like we're playing a match and you're playing doubles and all sorts of stuff is going to happen during the course of a match. Like the other team could play really, really well. Maybe it's a day that your partner's not playing up, their best. Maybe it's a day you're not playing your best. But if we start picking on each other, hey, you missed that shot. I can't believe it. You suck. Or that was unheard of. Like that was an unspoken rule. Like you were there to lift them up and get their head back in the game. Because if you start piling on, it just all comes unraveled so quick. And so, same thing with our team at the firm is like, okay, we need to build them up. We need to pick them up. We need to and so that's the mentality.
I love that, man. So you found some passion, doing single event stuff. You like that. Sounds like more than missed for it, because you could really kind of get more maybe intimate with the client and just, more hands-on, helping real, people individually. So then how did you get, where did you go then? Like, when did you find Dudley DeBosier? Like where did you go? What started doing
So we had actually, my partners and I all worked for a firm, and this is I was the COO handling a few cases, and my two partners were the trial attorneys at the firm.
Yeah.
And then one day and we were all happy. I was enjoying the firm. Life was good. My two partners were trying the cases. They were enjoying what they're doing. And when the two partners came in and go, "Hey, look, we have some bar issues. We're gonna."
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just came in, and and it was they just
awkward.
It was awkward, and they said, "Hey, look, we might have some trouble. We don't think it's gonna be a big deal, but we're letting you know." And then, like, not short thereafter, they were disbarred, and they were disbarred for is that probably like a decade prior to that. They had shared. They had done an incentive program whereby legal assistants, if they settled a case pre-suit, they would get a percentage of the, of the fee. 10 years later, the bar basically delivered their judgment on that. And so we were sitting there and we're like, gosh, it was a strange thing. Do we try and keep this thing going? Do we all go work for other firms? Yeah. Do we go try and start our own firms? And we really believed in the team that was there. And said, all right, let's go form. We're going to keep this thing going. Form Dudley DeBosier. And it was a really, really tough couple of years. I mean, where we weren't getting nearly as many calls, and at that point, so back in 2009, I had really had my first consulting client. So I've been doing some database stuff and dashboards and that kind of stuff. And one firm called me up and said, "Hey, can you come help us out?" It was my very first. I was like, okay, boom, I'm in.
That's cool.
And so first Vista Consulting was formed back in 2009. And then we started Dudley DeBosier in 2009. And so both were off the ground and just hustling, just trying to hopefully they both, go great. But it was definitely a grind. And I learned so much during, those early years, got to make a bunch of really, really great relationships. That was back when there was no consultants. There's no, no coaching. I think, Atticus I think they might be the OGs. They were out of Florida, Mark Powers and those guys who are amazing. They may have been the only other ones. And so we got going, a whole new space, and, the firm grew, Vista grew, with Tim Mackey, who's just an awesome close friend and also mentor, and just incredible person, human being. And then and so we just we grew both, and then the law firm started to get traction. Vista got traction, and then in 2018, the advertising agency that we were using as a firm, the owner, Arnie Malheim, another awesome person in the industry who we learned a bunch of stuff from, said, "Hey, look, I'm thinking about selling the agency." And we said, who? And he said, just, some guys that want to buy it. And I was like, well, can we buy it? What if we bought it? And so we bought CJ Advertising 2018. I got out of Vista at that point, turned it, Tim took it over completely at that point. And so we started, trying to help firms grow. And it was really the first time. So we approached it from, we're not going to just help firms get more cases in the door, but we approach it from a very operational driven stance. So Mickey Love, who's incredible, came on board, and she had worked with us in Vista, and she's part of Vista. But when we bought CJ Advertising, she was, ran CJ, and we worked with her to help grow firms. We had a bunch of firms just have some tremendous growth. So working with them operationally and helping them get more cases in the door. I saw a ton of clients do that. And at the time, that was a very novel idea. So there wasn't a bunch of, consulting agencies out there, and the advertising agencies did not offer any of that, right? And then now I think every agency has like operational arm, and there's a million mastermind groups, and there's
too many.
there's too many conferences, but back then it was like all pretty new, and so it's cool to kind of like start some of these trends and get that stuff going, and so then we just grew the agency, continued to work with firms, and we just sold the agency maybe six months ago. And
fantastic. I'm curious, going back a little bit with Dudley DeBosier, you guys start the firm, right? You said it was hard. So what were some things you did well, looking back, like, geez, I'm glad we did that, because obviously things were working out. It just wasn't immediate.
Yeah, we were so when we first started the firm in 2009, there's some really very well funded competitors that were there, and we just couldn't compete with them financially. Like, we were a small player in the market, and and we're looking around going, gosh, how do we even start to chip away at this huge task? And you zero in on the things you have control over, and we said, okay, you know what, if we're gonna be excellent at client service and at the results that we get for our clients, if we're gonna get fanatical about that piece. And we said, look, we're gonna talk to our clients more than every other firm. We went to a spot where, like, okay, every 7 days we're gonna make sure that they're hearing from us. And then we realized that there's a point of diminishing returns. That the clients are like, hey, why are you calling me again? Okay, we prefer that versus I never hear from you, because that was the big complaint, right? And we want to have meaningful, intentional communication with the client, not just like, hey, how you doing? Okay, see you, bye. But really get to know them, and then meet their needs, right? And so we got fanatical about that. We got fanatical about breaking down every part of the case and going, how do we get a better result here? How do we do this more efficiently? How do we increase the result that we get for our clients? And we're like, okay, we're going to make sure that they all know that we're their attorney, and they can reach us and get answers real quick. And in addition to that, we're going to push to get the best results we possibly can. And like, there's some firms that, like, we got my two partners are just really great trial attorneys, and we have a bunch of other attorneys at the office that are really, really great trial attorneys. That's just an awesome, just such an awesome advantage to have, because some firms have to refer those cases out, or they have to bring someone in or whatever, and having those just some really great trial attorneys all throughout the firm makes everyone better, and really helps everyone push to get good results for the clients. And so as we were doing these things, and really fanatically, we just saw, gosh, the number of referrals going in, and then we started we reinvested in the firm, where, okay, we could have taken a profit of this, but let's put it back into growing the firm, and repeating that year over year. And again, the role of mentors, just being intentional. Each year we'd sit down, and we'd the Cameron Herald Vivid Vision, sit down and go, hey, what do we want this to look like in every year? What do we want it to look like 3 years from now? Now, I spoke with Cameron. He says, that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to do like, but the concept being, what are we trying to build? And really taking the time, and not just aimlessly working, in the firm, but really stepping out and going, okay, what are we trying to build? What does it look like? What do we want to be a part of? If our family or friends, interacted with our firm, what would we want that experience to look like? And putting it on paper and sharing that with people around us. And that, there's no magic bullet. There's no super, it's just consistent, high intensity, intentional effort over long periods of time. And then,
how big is Dudley DeBosier today?
We have about 150 total employees, and then have about 50 attorneys.
Hey everyone, it's Chris. If you ever have a personal injury case here in Massachusetts that you can't take on, or just want to refer out to a trusted firm, my team and I would love to work with you. Since 2004, I've only practiced personal injury law, and my team and I pride ourselves on handling referrals with transparency, good communication, and care for your client. And if you're not already getting it, head on over to practicetipoftheweek.com, practicetipoftheweek.com to join my free email list. It goes out to hundreds and hundreds of lawyers each and every week with actionable marketing and practicing tips. Thanks for listening. Look forward to collaborating with you. Was anyone teaching you this stuff about fanatical client communication, case grading, or did you kind of figure this stuff out by trial and error? The stuff you teach today, were you taught that, or you sort of found that in your practice?
Well, it's a mix. I was raised in a reading household. My mom was a voracious reader. I mean, she just goes constantly, and she that was something that she passed on, and so I've always been a reader since like young, and so I really got in. I mean, just through always reading like business books and let me learn about this and okay, you know what, and let me go down the path of like there's so many great authors and I try, and I'm talking a bit, but I have a book coming out on trial guides. But trial guides is such a great resource. Like, I mean, every time they got something coming out, I'll read. So reading from what some of these great attorneys are doing and getting what they're doing to get results gives you ideas. And a lot of times I'll read something that some of those authors will put out and be like, okay, that's amazing and fanatical. How can I scale that? Getting I always say like, okay, if we have one of our attorneys that's really great at depositions and they're doing A, B, and C, that's awesome. We want each one. How do we coach the other 49 attorneys to do those things in a systematic way, right? Yeah. And so a lot of things are concepts that you pick up from, okay, well, the case grading, well, that's driven by the Pareto principle. Well, that's driven by there's books 80-20 rule, or there's the books The One Thing, right? And there's a bunch of books that talk about that concept, and then you work with some firms and you meet some. That's a great thing when I'm working with firms. Like, yes, I'm bringing a lot to the table. I'm coaching them on a lot of concepts. Right. Also, you meet some really, really amazing people that teach you some amazing concepts, and it just compounds, right? And so a mix of again, reading fanatically. I take notes on everything I read. I have a website. It's the Dudley DeBook Shelf, where you can go on there and see all my notes and summaries of all the books I read.
That's awesome.
But that process, going to conferences, working with mentors, talking with people that are like-minded, and kind of, I have no doubt if we spent, if we got lunch together, I would learn a ton of things, and just being like, okay, being active about those, about that. And then dots start connecting. Like, well, what if I took this concept and put this thing, and then all of a sudden you have this, then you get to try it out, and it just kind of compounds.
I love it. You have access to a lot of firms because you're coaching a lot of firms, and you're seeing how firms nationwide are doing it. Back to the reading thing. I had Steve Mayer on 2 days ago on the show. He runs Sweet James. He said he reads between 2 and 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's a common trait. This is very people 100%. That they're just, because, gosh, I mean, you get to hang out with some pretty great people, by reading their book.
Yeah. I mean, readers just, and then when you combine reading voraciously with not chasing money but purpose and impact, you're off to the races, right? That's how you grow from 150 people. So so talk about the book. You have the book coming out. Is it out yet or no? What's it called?
No, it's coming out in the next month or two. It's called 7 Disciplines for Successful Firms. So what I did was, over the years, gosh, I was probably like, I've worked with 250 plus firms, plaintiff firms across the country, everything from, a solo practitioner to firms that are massive, signing up 1,500 cases a month in multiple states and all that kind of, right. So I worked with everything in between, and there are definitely differences amongst the firms. What I did for this book is, if I could take 7 things that all the great ones do. Here's the 7 things, and let me share this, and I put them in the book, talked about them when I work with firms. These are the things that I try to lock down, do. You'll recognize a lot of those things. And so it's on Trial Guides. It's coming out in, like I said, in the next month or two. And I'm excited about it. Yeah.
No, you should be. That's a big deal, writing a book. That's a tremendous accomplishment. So I'll be picking that up for sure. First of all, I work with Mickey. Mickey Love is my coach, and she has been enormously, prodigiously impactful on me, because she just like rolls up her sleeves and gets stuff done. Right.
Yes.
And so I just want to share, she's going to be coming on the show at some point soon. I love Mickey. She's been fantastic. But, you and she speak the same language, right? It's like the fundamentals. We keep talking about fanatical and coaching, but like the fundamental, that the full block, the fullback, runs here, the block is here. It's like tackling, blocking. It's not that complicated. Call your clients, case grade, and then work your best case. The 5% gives you 50% of your income. You're immersed in all these firms. What's your biggest frustration? What's the common thing? You just want to hit your head against the wall because, like, you keep seeing it happen. It's getting in the way of great owners from really unlocking great, firm production. What are some common mistakes you see?
Oh gosh. I think so. Some of the, one of the firm, another mentor would be Lee Coleman at Hughes and Coleman, and he's taught so many people in so many different firms. One thing I always admire about Lee is that regardless of how incredibly successful their firm has been and how amazing that what they built, he's always looking to learn. I mean, he is always like, he's like, tell me more about that. Tell me. I've never heard him say, we always do that.
Yeah.
I never hear him say, okay, we do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking about, so that whenever I hear that at a firm, and I brought that up earlier, I mean, it really is like, okay, I got work to do here. I mean, this is going to be a tough one versus someone that's like, so, but the other challenge is, I think, when you get with the firm, I mean, gosh, I really get the fortune. I've worked with some just amazing firms, and they're all like active learners. And I want to say the biggest spot where firms struggle is, I say that everything breaks every time you double, right? And so firm, it's somewhere around, 5 people. There's a couple things that happen when you're 5 people and 1 owner. The owner is essentially at that point 20% of the culture, 20% of the vibe at the firm. Yeah. And everyone. So then you go to 10 people. Right now the owner is 10% of the culture and the people, and that's an important statistic, because I think at all times you got to have at least 10% of your team that knows everything that's going on at the firm. They eat their cultural ambassadors, where they act and move and think like the owner's core values. And as you get bigger, that 10% gets tougher to maintain, right? And you got to make sure that you're always investing. Like, do I always have, because one, they got to have access to all the information, because if you want them to make smart decisions, you can't hide, 20% of the information from those guys and then expect them to make decisions like you do with 100% of the information. So when I talk about scaling, so, okay, you're humming along at, 10 people, and now you get to 20 people and you're starting to cook, and you're like, okay. And then the sort of the fun phase of the firm is somewhere between 20 and 40, because you're like, everybody. The owner can still kind of like keep all their, fingers and all the different things. Go, hey, I understand there. I know this. I know everyone's, husband, wife, kids, names, and we all, the parties are kind of fun, and it still feels like a small little family. And the real grind is typically between when firms go to 40 to 80 people, where you're growing, and all of a sudden it gets a little funky. And if you don't have a good team, good systems and processes, good communication channels, then so a lot of firms will get intimidated and like turn back around and go, I don't want to be corporate, or I don't want to be a big firm. And it's not that they don't want to be a big firm, that they just associate it with chaos, working 100-hour weeks, feeling like they're not in control of every little aspect of it. And there's ways to get over that hump, but I see that's usually the spot where a lot of firms either hit the wall and go back, or really have a lot of get stuck there.
you talk a lot about, when you get your arms around a firm and you start looking, you like to look at intake, setting case grades, and then setting a value. For someone who hasn't really heard those words before, what can the practitioner do today? Quick wins we talk about, right? What are some quick wins?
Absolutely.
Intake, for example, where would you start? Like if you had to start.
Yeah, when I go into a firm, and we talk about, hey, there's no secret sauce, there's no magic bullet. You get you really can. There's 3 spots where in the first 90 days you can actually make some decent progress, right? One is intake, where you go, and if you're messing up something in intake and you fix it tomorrow, you get to experience the benefit the next day, right? If you improve your first call conversion, if you improve your, you're chasing down what I call no contacts and making sure you're in touch. There's little nuances that you can go and tweak, and it's very satisfying because you see the result the next day, right? The second thing is that I'll see firms that have a really weak or defective way that they categorize their cases or grade their cases, and I talk about that a lot, where, the Pareto point is true. For healthy firms, typically 20%, the best 20% of their cases generate 80% of their revenue. Their best 5% of their cases generate 50% of the revenue, right? And so when I look at a firm and where those things don't necessarily hold up, there's usually reasons why, and we got to go find out. Like a lot of firms go, we don't get good cases. That's great, Chad and whoever else, that you guys get these really, really great cases, but we don't, and that's why we haven't been able to grow. The reality is that you do have those good cases, and you're just not great at finding them. And it sounds harsh, but it's true. And so intake case grading is essentially, let's make sure we have high visibility on our best cases because they're there. And then the last thing is, let's make sure that we don't undersettle our best cases tomorrow, which is the concept of let's set target values for each and every case that is in a negotiation posture, right? Because, if you look at a firm and say they have 5 attorneys and say you give them all the exact same case, and one attorney gets $250,000 on that case, and the next attorney's getting 150, and the next attorney's getting 100, and maybe one day actually selling it for 75. The difference between what we call the attorney with the highest credible risk tolerance at the firm, the difference between what they get and the lowest is a measure of inefficiency, because our clients deserve to get the highest number if they have the same case. Now, I get there's different low layers of coverage, but there's things that happen at a firm where there's people that are in silos and they're undersettling cases. And I was working at the firm the other day, and that just a young associate had a really, really good case, and they just were working in a silo. They didn't get a value assigned to it. They took pennies on the dollar. Yeah.
Oh, you talk about attorney tiers. Once you get a certain size and scale, you can have tiers, right?
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing that a somewhat controversial topic, but it's a conversation that is uncomfortable for a lot of firms to have, but it's a necessary conversation. And that is, can we just agree that our job as attorneys for our clients is to get the absolute best result we possibly can as a firm, right? And then can we also agree that there are some attorneys at the firm that have more experience, they've developed their skills more, they spent more time on their craft, and they have a history of getting better results, right? If we can't agree to that, then we're off, right? But so if this is our job and this is the truth, then can we have a conversation about who those are, and not to embarrass anybody and not to belittle anybody, but can we have that conversation for the sake of, we owe it to our clients. If a case looks like this, we want to pass the case to the person that is most qualified to get it to the finish line, right? And with a great result. And so we developed these attorney tiers, and it was intended to be, it's intended to be an objective way just to have that conversation. Tier 5 is essentially an attorney that's gotten 3+ first chair jury verdicts of $1 million or more in the past 5 years. A tier 1 would be someone that is fresh out of law school and requires a lot of time, effort, energy, attention. Do our tier fives walk around the office and knock the files out of the hands of the tier ones and, point at them and laugh? No. They're charged with coaching them up and helping them reach their goals. But if there's not clarity about, hey, I got to, I owe it to the client to pass the ball to one of our more qualified attorneys when it looks like this, then what you have is you're essentially trying to run an offense where you have 4 people thinking they're the quarterback and no one wants to, and it's chaos, right? And so firms that don't want to, because here's how firms do it, right? Firms are like, well, everyone knows who the good attorneys are, and we haven't really talked about it, but we all kind of know.
Yeah.
Then, you have a case and you move it from, Joe to John, and then they all get mad because I know what I'm doing. And so you have to have that conversation. So we developed this tier system. We have it again. It's in the effort of like, let's get the best result for our clients, and let's just talk about this, because if we don't talk about it, it's going to be chaotic. And the other thing is, if there's firms that don't have any tier 4, tier 5 attorneys, you can run a great firm. You just got to attack it differently, in the sense of like, can we just agree when it looks like this, you should get a tier 4, tier 5
right
associated on the case, or refer. I do something, again, we owe it to the client to get a great result. Yeah. And if we're honest with ourselves that, hey, we don't got anybody, but we got this guy that wants to be one, we'll pair him up with a really, really great attorney and let them follow them side by side and develop those skills so that one day they can be a tier 5, right?
I love that. It's it's not about the lawyer not being up to snuff. It's about what it requires. I think a mentor of mine, Bill Biggs, talked about, he has written down, like, this is what a tier 5 is, right? They do X, Y, Z. So it's objective. Yeah. It's not like, Chad, you're not that. It's like, well, this is what it is. So then the honest conversation kind of almost handles itself, but you're still being brutally honest, right? And so I think that's really important. I think a quick win as well for the practitioner who just, maybe this is a fire hose information on this call right now, is 80-20, right? And once this podcast ends, go to your files. Right? There's 20% of them will bring you 80% of your revenue. I think we flip that, right? As busy attorneys, we flip that, and we're working our asses off, working 70 hours a week.
Treat them all the same.
For less, it's all the same. But like, so you're getting you're getting more tactical, strategic, right? On a obviously very sophisticated level. You don't be that sophisticated to identify what are my top 5%. I made it just double my income this year by doing that, and better serve my clients, because I can only do so much. At my firm, a great case is a C- case. I can only do so much for the client. I'd love to work to help it. There's a minimum there's a max so I can get for a C graded case, right? For an A++, I can do so much for that client. And so, I underscore to the listener, always do what's best for the client. So you need to have
that's our North Star. That's it.
That's
our
North Star. For the client, you win. You're gonna have a happier practice. You're gonna make more money. The client's gonna be, raving fans. It's kind of simple, because the stuff you preach is actually kind of simple. It's hard stuff, but it's the fundamental, again, blocking and tackling, that we get distracted, right? We get derailed.
Yeah, I always say it's the fanatical, consistent application of simple concepts. Like if I say call your clients more, no kidding, Chad. Thanks for the advice. But when I say, okay, let's really get fanatical about how we're going to deliver on that and really break it down. That's a different thing. So it's a simple concept, but it's the fanatical, consistent application. And that's the happened the other day. I was working with a firm, and we just started the grading process with them. And so we went through and we found some cases that weren't on the radar that had the elements of being potentially really, really great cases. Then one of them was in negotiation, and the goal of the attorney was a young guy, and he was doing everything that he thought he's doing everything he could on this case. And he wanted to go settle it for $500,000. We fortunately had a couple of the other attorneys from this firm on the line and tried some cases, and this was under the radar. Now it's on the radar. And they said, we had a total of 1.5 million in coverage, and like, this is a policy limits case all day long. Don't take anything less than 1.5. And then 2 weeks later, the new attorney got 1.5.
Wonderful.
Max limits. And it blew their mind. Like, oh my gosh, how many of these are there at our firm? And it was just like that. Boom.
I love that.
The client's in a better spot, the firm's in a better spot, and then you multiply that by a bunch of cases, and it makes a difference.
Oh, big time. If you're talking about MSV, what's MSV?
So we got this. So when we first started it, we called it MSV. It was said, okay, this is our minimum settlement value. And basically it's like, this is the most aggressive number that we're going to draw the line in the sand over, where if we don't get, we feel great about recommending this as a great result to the client. If we don't get it, we're willing to go take the case to trial on this number. Since that time, I have, firms, some people call it the FSV, full settlement value. Some people call it the maximum settlement value. Some people call it the TRV, target resolution value. Basically, the goal is, where are we going to draw the line in the sand on this case, and let's make it aggressive. And we also compare it to we take all factors into consideration when we set that number. Coverage, liability, plaintiff, venue, causation, et cetera. And then we also assign another number that people don't talk about as much, is top value. Top value is basically saying, okay, assume that we win on liability, clean causation, and we have unlimited coverage. What are the damages in this case worth, right? And I would argue the bigger the gap between MSV and top value is where the skill of the attorney plays a bigger. You got a big liability issue. Okay, we need some of our best attorneys on that. We got a big causation issue. We need our best attorney on that, right? That kind of thing. So,
I love that, Chad. I really appreciate the wisdom. Thank you so much, Professor, for teaching all of us, for being willing to be a giver, right, and to share your best tips, your best strategies. That helps the whole bar. So I appreciate you. How can people get in touch with you?
Look, you can email me at cdudley at dudleydebosier.com. That's DUDLEY DEBOSIER.com. So
awesome, Chad. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Don't stop teaching. I'm excited to see what the next chapter holds for you. Super excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for this episode of the Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Answer Legal YouTube channel.